The screech of tires was the last sound I heard before impact. My old Honda slamming into the sleek black Audi ahead like a confession I couldn't take back. Rain hammered the windshield in New York City's relentless downpour, turning the world into a smeared watercolor of red brake lights and blurred taillights. But nothing could blur the face that turned toward me in the rearview, eyes wide with shock, lips parting in a silent curse that echoed my own regret. In that frozen second, as steam hissed from the crumpled hood and my heart pounded like a guilty verdict, I realized this wasn't just a fender bender. It was the collision that would shatter the fragile walls I'd built around my loneliness. I stumbled out of the car, the cold November rain soaking through my thin jacket in seconds, my hands trembling as I clutched my phone, ready to call the cops or an Uber to vanish, whichever came first. The driver of the Audi emerged like a figure from a noir film, tall and broad-shouldered, his dark coat clinging to him as he rounded the bumper, his face a mask of controlled fury etched with something deeper, something haunted. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low and gravelly, cutting through the storm like a lifeline I didn't deserve. I nodded, words failing me, but as our eyes locked under the sodium glow of a street lamp on West 57th, I saw not anger, but a flicker of recognition, as if we'd rear-ended each other years ago in some forgotten life. His name was Connor Hayes, he said, extending a hand that was warm despite the chill, calloused from what I later learned were hours spent sketching blueprints for buildings that scraped the sky. Mine was Zachary Ellis, Zach to friends I barely had anymore, and as we exchanged insurance cards under the shelter of his umbrella, the rain drumming a frantic rhythm on the nylon, I felt the first crack in the armor I'd worn since college, when coming out had cost me my family's silence and a scholarship that vanished overnight. "This city's a beast," Connor muttered, glancing at the dented trunk of his car, a sleek machine that screamed success in a world that had chewed me up and spit me out as a barista scraping by in a Brooklyn walk-up. "But hey, no one's hurt. That's something." His smile was tentative, crooked, revealing a dimple that made my stomach twist in a way I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. We waited for the tow truck together on the slick sidewalk, the cacophony of horns and sirens a distant roar as we leaned against the Audi's hood, sharing awkward laughs about near misses and bad luck. Connor was an architect, fresh off a high-profile project in Midtown that had his name in the trades, but his eyes, storm gray and shadowed, held stories of late nights and empty apartments. I confessed my own mediocrity over a shared thermos of coffee from my glove compartment, the steam curling between us like unspoken invitations. By the time the truck arrived, the rain had eased to a drizzle, and Connor scribbled his number on a soggy napkin. "Call me when you get the estimate," he said, but his gaze lingered, a question hanging in the air thicker than the humidity. I pocketed it like a talisman, driving home with my pulse still racing, wondering if I just dodged a bullet or aimed straight for my heart. That night, in the dim glow of my single-bulb kitchen, I stared at the napkin until the ink blurred, my reflection in the cracked mirror above the sink showing a man who'd forgotten how to chase anything but survival. At 28, I'd buried my dreams under shifts at the daily grind, where the espresso machine's hiss drowned out the what-ifs. Coming out at 19 had been a quiet explosion, my parents in suburban Ohio freezing me out with passive-aggressive voicemails, my brother ghosting me after one awkward Thanksgiving. I'd fled to New York chasing reinvention, but all I'd found was isolation, hookups that left me hollower, and a therapist's couch that echoed with "You're worthy, Zach. Believe it, worthy." The word mocked me as I dialed Connor's number, my thumb hovering like a coward's paws. He answered on the second ring, his voice a rumble that warmed the line. Hayes here. Damage report. We talked for an hour about the repair shop's quote. Sure. But veering into the absurd poetry of city driving, the way potholes mimicked life's ambushes. He laughed at my story of a pigeon dive-bombing my windshield last summer, a full-bellied guffaw that pulled one from me in return, raw and unused. Listen, he said, when the conversation lulled into comfortable silence. There's a dive bar on the Lower East Side, McSorley's. Beer's on me tomorrow. Consider it hazard pay for the whiplash. My yes tumbled out before doubt could claw it back. And as we hung up, I felt the first tentative bloom of possibility, like sunlight piercing storm clouds. McSorley's was a relic. All sawdust floors and ale in pewter mugs, the kind of place where secrets soaked into the wood panels. Connor was already there when I arrived, nursing a dark and stormy at a corner table, his sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms dusted with faint scars from model building mishaps. He stood to greet me, that dimple flashing, and for a moment, the bar's clamor faded, leaving just the two of us in a bubble of nervous energy. We ordered oysters and talked architecture, his passion for sustainable designs that healed the skyline, my half-remembered lectures from an aborted urban planning degree. You dropped out, he asked, not with judgment, but curiosity, his knee brushing mine under the table in what could have been accident. Yeah, I admitted, tracing the mug's rim. Family stuff. The closet door slammed shut behind me, and suddenly scholarships weren't for distractions. The words hung heavy, but Connor didn't flinch. Instead, he shared his own fracture, out since high school in Boston, but a recent breakup with a guy who'd bailed when Connor's firm demanded 80-hour weeks. He said I was married to the job. Maybe he was right. His eyes met mine, vulnerable in the low light, and I saw the architect in him, blueprints of a life half-built, waiting for the right foundation. As the night deepened, the conversation turned personal, confessions spilling like the ale we overindulged in. I told him about the empty holiday cards from Ohio, the way my mom's "we love you," but had carved a chasm. He spoke of his sister's wedding last spring, where he'd stood alone as best man, toasting love he couldn't claim without the ghost of rejection haunting him. Our hands found each other across the table, fingers lacing in a grip that said more than words, electric and anchoring. When the bartender called last call, Connor walked me to the subway, the autumn air crisp with fallen leaves skittering at our feet. At the platform, he cupped my cheek, thumb brushing my jaw. This doesn't have to be a one-off crash, Zach. His kiss was soft, exploratory, tasting of hops and hope, a promise that lingered on my lips long after the train rattled away. The weeks that followed blurred into a montage of stolen moments, each one chipping away at the isolation I'd armored myself with. Mornings started with Connor's texts, good morning memes of crumbling skyscrapers captioned, "Build better today," pulling me from sleep with a smile I hadn't worn since freshman year. We'd meet after my shifts, wandering the High Line where wildflowers tangled with steel rails, his arm slung casual around my shoulders as if we'd always fit this way. He showed me his sketches in a sunlit loft studio overlooking the Hudson, blueprints unfurled like love letters to the future. Eco towers with green roofs that whispered sustainability, community centers that bridged divides. This one's for kids like us, he said, pointing to a youth hub in Queens. Safe spaces where coming out doesn't mean losing everything. I traced the lines with my finger, awed by the man who dreamed in structures that endured. Our first real date was at a rooftop farm in Brooklyn, where we harvested heirloom tomatoes under a harvest moon, the city lights twinkling like distant applause. Connor's laughter echoed as mud splattered his jeans, and when he fed me a sun-warmed cherry tomato, juice bursting sweet on my tongue, I kissed him there amid the vines, the world narrowing to the salt of his skin and the beat of his heart against mine. Nights blurred into his apartment in Chelsea, a minimalist haven of exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows, where we'd cook pasta al dente and debate Frank Lloyd Wright versus Zaha Hadid until dawn. In his arms, tangled in sheets that smelled of him, cedar and clean linen, I whispered vulnerabilities I'd locked away, the panic attacks that gripped me in crowded bars, the fear that love was a luxury for men unscarred by silence. But beneath the romance, shadows stirred. Connor's phone buzzed incessantly with work alerts, his ex's name, Evan, flashing occasionally, a specter I pretended not to notice. Old habits, he'd dismiss with a kiss, but I'd catch him staring at the skyline, jaw tight, as if weighing foundations against faults. My own ghosts clawed back too. A voicemail from my dad, curt and probing. Heard you're seeing someone. Make sure it's not a phase, son. That left me curled on the fire escape, rain mingling with tears. Connor found me there one evening, wrapping me in his coat, his voice a steady anchor. You're not a phase, Zach. You're the blueprint I didn't know I needed. As December frosted the windows, our connection deepened into something profound, a romance etched in the quiet intimacies of shared silences. We strung lights in his loft for a makeshift Hanukkah, his Jewish roots blending with my lapsed Methodist haze, and baked lax that smoked up the place, laughing until we cried. On Christmas Eve, he took me to Rockefeller Center, the tree a glittering behemoth amid the skaters' whirl. Hand in hand, we glided unsteadily, his breath warm on my neck as he murmured, "This is us, falling, but catching each other." That night, under the tree's glow, he gave me a leather-bound sketchbook, blank pages waiting for my own designs. Draw your worth, Zach. It's infinite. Yet, as the new year loomed, fissures appeared. Connor's firm landed a massive contract, a luxury condo tower in Manhattan that promised his name in lights but demanded his soul. He vanished into all-nighters, emerging hollow-eyed, snapping at delays like a man fraying at the seams. It's just stress, he'd say, pulling me close, but the distance grew, measured in unanswered texts and cold dinners. I threw myself into night classes at community college, reviving my urban planning dreams. But doubt whispered, was I building on sand? One stormy February night, after he'd canceled our anniversary dinner paper for 1 year with a curt, deadlines killing me, I confronted him in the loft, rain lashing the panes like accusations. Am I the deadline now, Connor, or just the distraction Evan warned you about? The words escaped, venomous and raw, born of a voicemail I'd accidentally heard. Evan's voice, slurred and pleading, "Come back, Con. That barista boy's a rebound, you know it." Connor's face crumpled, the betrayal in his eyes mirroring mine. You listened to that, Zach? This nothing, he's nothing. But this project, this my shot. Our shot. The word twisted like a knife. I stormed out into the sleet, hailing a cab to Brooklyn, the city a blur of neon regrets. Days stretched into a frigid silence, my phone a tomb of unsent apologies. At work, the espresso machine mocked me with its indifferent steam, customers' chatter a din against my heartache. Connor's texts trickled in. We need to talk. I miss your laugh. But pride walled me off. The old fear roaring back. Unworthy. Always unworthy. It was my sister, Lila, the one family tie I'd salvaged, visiting from Ohio, who shook me loose. Over diner pie in Hell's Kitchen. She gripped my hand, her eyes fierce. Love isn't a crash without repairs, Zach. But you can't fix it alone. Her words echoed as I dialed him that night, voice breaking on the first ring. We met at the crash site, West 57th, under a sky clearing to stars, the dent long repaired, but scars lingering. Connor arrived disheveled, tie askew, his coat dusted with fresh snow. I betrayed you, he started, voice cracking. Not with Evan, with ambition. I let the job eclipse us because losing you terrified me more than failing. Tears traced his cheeks, and I saw the architect undone, blueprints scattered. I pulled back from the project, told the firm it's me or the overtime. And Evan, blocked for good. You're it, Zach. The structure I want to build forever. I pulled him into the street lamp's glow, our embrace fierce against the wind. I ran because I thought I wasn't enough, I confessed, lips brushing his temple. But you saw me, really saw, when I was invisible. We kissed there, snowflakes melting on our skin, the city humming approval. In the months that followed, we rebuilt. Connor scaled back, mentoring young designers instead of chasing towers. I enrolled full-time, sketching community plans inspired by his dreams. Betrayal's sting faded into lessons. Love as vulnerability, worth as shared foundation. Spring bloomed in Central Park, cherry blossoms carpeting paths where we picnicked, his head in my lap as I read from my sketchbook. To enduring collisions, he toasted with cheap wine, dimple flashing. And as summer's heat rose, we planned a road trip, Route 66, chasing horizons unscarred by rear views. In the quiet of our life woven together, I learned that worth isn't rebuilt alone. It's co-authored, line by line, in the spaces where two hearts align. The crash had been no accident. It was the spark that lit the blueprint of us. The road to forgiveness wasn't paved with good intentions. It was riddled with detours, each one forcing me to confront the man I'd become in the shadow of rejection. Back in my Brooklyn apartment after that snowy reconciliation, the walls closed in like judgmental whispers, remnants of takeout boxes and unread mail mocking my solitude. Connor's absence during those radio-silent days had unearthed old wounds. The echo of my father's voice on that voicemail. Make sure it's not a phase, slicing deeper than any breakup. I'd always been the sensitive son, the one who preferred sketching cityscapes over football. And when I came out, it wasn't fireworks but frost. Dinners where silverware clinked like accusations, my mother's averted eyes over pie. New York had been my escape, but isolation my cellmate, until Connor's Audi became the wrecking ball. Our first post-fight coffee was at a hole-in-the-wall on Bleecker Street, the kind with mismatched mugs and baristas who didn't pry. He arrived early, fidgeting with a napkin, his usual confidence frayed at the edges. I brought this, he said, sliding a small box across the scarred oak table, a vintage compass, brass etched with true north, for when I lose direction. Like I did with you. His gray eyes pleaded, raw without the armor of sketches or suits, and I felt the ice in my chest thaw, just a fraction. We talked haltingly at first, circling the betrayal like wary cats. Evan's call had been a drunken Hail Mary from months prior, but Connor's silence on it had been the real wound, a brick in the wall he'd helped me build. I was scared, he admitted, stirring his black coffee into oblivion. Success in this city, it's a siren. I thought if I could just nail this project, I'd prove I was more than the kid who got bullied for holding his best friend's hand at prom. His Boston accent thickened with emotion, a vulnerability that mirrored my own. I shared then, haltingly, about the scholarship lost to moral clauses, the nights I'd lain awake wondering if love was a vice I couldn't afford. Our hands met midway, fingers interlocking like puzzle pieces long separated. And in that greasy spoon, amid the sizzle of bacon and murmur of strangers, we vowed transparency, no ghosts, no omissions. Rebuilding meant small acts of faith. Connor showed up at my shift's end with falafel wraps from a street cart, leaning against the counter as I frothed lattes, his presence a quiet rebellion against my doubts. "Missed your foam art," he'd tease, eyeing my clumsy hearts in the cappuccino swirl, and I'd flush, the warmth spreading like sunlight after eclipse. Evenings found us in his loft, not tangled in passion but in creation. He'd draft elevations while I pored over textbooks, our desks pushed together like conjoined twins. One night, as thunder rumbled over the East River, he pulled me onto the rug, sketching us as a tiny figures in a grand hall, two men hand in hand amid soaring arches. "This is our design," he whispered, pencil tracing my profile. "Unbreakable, but trust is a fragile scaffold, and the city's tempests tested it." A week later, Connor's firm threw a gala for the condo project. Black tie, champagne flutes, egos inflated like balloons. He invited me as his +1, a gesture that felt like armor against Evan's shadow. I borrowed a suit from a coworker, ill-fitting but earnest, and as we entered the ballroom at the plaza, chandeliers dripping light like liquid gold, I felt exposed, a barista among titans. Connor's hand at my back was steady, introducing me as Zach Ellis, the planner who's going to revolutionize Queens. Heads nodded, impressed, but then Evan appeared, tall, blonde, with a smile like polished marble, clapping Connor on the shoulder. "Con, heard you're scaling back." "Burnout already?" The air thickened, Evan's eyes flicking to me with predatory curiosity. "And this is?" Connor's grip tightened. "Zach. My partner." The word landed like a declaration, but Evan's laugh was a scalpel. "Partner? Cute. Remember that trip to Provincetown? You said forever was for suckers." He sauntered off, leaving venom in his wake, and I excused myself to the balcony, the night air sharp against my nausea. Connor followed, finding me gripping the railing, city lights blurring through unshed tears. "He's lying," he insisted, voice urgent. "That was before us." But doubt gnawed. Was I the rebound, the safe harbor after the storm? We left early, the cab ride silent torture, my mind replaying Evan's barbs. At the loft, paced, words tumbling like debris. Was it ever real, Connor? Or am I just the guy who fits between deadlines? He stopped me, hands on my shoulders, eyes fierce. "Real? God, Zach, you're the only real thing I've touched in years." Evan was flash parties, poses. You're the quiet that rebuilds me." He kissed me then, not with fire but with the slow burn of truth. And as we sank onto the bed, clothes shed like old skins, it was intimacy reborn, whispers of affirmations, touches that mapped scars into stories. In his arms, I glimpsed redemption, not erasure, but integration. Spring's thaw brought renewal. I aced my midterms, My professors praising a proposal for affordable housing in the Bronx, inspired by Connor's sustainable ethos. He, in turn, mentored at a nonprofit, teaching queer youth to design their futures, literally, with cardboard models and boundless encouragement. Our weekends became rituals. Farmers markets in Union Square, where we'd haggle over artisanal cheeses, his arm around my waist unapologetic. Lazy Sundays in bed, trading sections of the New York Times, debating op-eds on marriage equality with the fervor of converts. One afternoon, as we strolled Washington Square Park, buskers strumming folk tunes, Connor dropped to one knee, not with a ring, but a key. "To the loft," he said, grin boyish. "Make it ours." My yes was a sob, joy cracking the last reservations. Yet, conflict simmered beneath the idol. My family loomed, an unspoken specter. Lila's visits were lifelines, but a letter arrived from Ohio, my mother's handwriting, tentative. "We're trying, Zachary. Come home for Memorial Day." Connor encouraged it, packing my bag with "You're braver than you know." The drive was a gauntlet, cornfields blurring into memories of slammed doors. At the farmhouse, my parents waited on the porch, faces lined with unspoken apologies. Dinner was stilted, small talk over pot roast, but when I mentioned Connor, my father's fork paused. "An architect? Sounds solid." It wasn't absolution, but a crack in the ice. My mother's hand squeezing mine under the table. "We were wrong. Love us anyway." The return to New York was cathartic. Connor waiting at Penn Station with roses and relief. "Proud of you," he murmured, and in that embrace, I felt worthy, not despite my past, but through it. Our love deepened into advocacy. We volunteered at a shelter for LGBTQ+ youth, sharing stories that bridged our pains. Connor's designs incorporated Ellis Wings, modular spaces for family reconciliation, named for me. As summer peaked, we escaped to Fire Island, the pines alive with rainbow flags and beach bonfires. There, under stars thick as promises, he traced constellations on my skin. "You're my north, Zach." Always, but autumn whispered warnings. Connor's firm, sensing his drift, dangled a promotion, lead on a controversial high-rise that would displace longtime Harlem residents. The offer came over dinner at our loft, his excitement dimmed by moral qualms. "It's a chance to influence from inside," he argued, but I saw the siren call, Evan's echo in the ambition. "Don't lose yourself," I cautioned, voice soft. He nodded, but the seed of discord rooted. The climax brewed in October's chill, a board meeting where Connor pitched eco-features to save the project. I waited in the lobby, thumbing a planning journal, when Evan cornered me, uninvited, eyes gleaming with malice. "He's using you, to soften his image. Queer power couple for the portfolio." Lies, but they burrowed, amplifying my insecurities. That night, as Connor raved about compromises won, I confronted him, Evan's poison spilling out. "Is that all I am? A prop?" Hurt flashed in his eyes, then fury. "After everything? You're believing him over me?" Words escalated, old fears fueling flames. My unworthiness, his drive as betrayal renewed. He stormed to the studio, door slamming like finality. I fled to Lila's couch, Brooklyn nights endless with what-ifs. Days blurred, texts ignored, my classes a haze. It was a mutual friend, Marcus from the shelter, who mediated. Love's not a solo build. Meet halfway. We did. At that same bleaker diner, mugs steaming like fragile truces. Connor looked wrecked, stubble shadowing his jaw. I turned down the promotion, he confessed. Because without you, what's the point? You're not a prop, you're the foundation. Tears mingled with coffee, and we laughed, broken but mending. From ashes, we rose stronger. Connor joined the nonprofit full-time, his talents fueling community rebirth. I graduated with honors, my thesis on inclusive urbanism landing an internship at City Hall. Betrayal's lessons wove into our tapestry. Check-ins over wine, therapy sessions tag-teamed. The humanistic close came at Thanksgiving. Our table a mosaic. Lila, my parents tentative but present. Connor's sister toasting to collisions that create. As snow dusted the windows, I leaned into him, compass steady. Worth wasn't rebuilt in isolation. It was co-constructed, enduring as the skyline we both loved. Winter's grip loosened reluctantly, but our resolve hardened like mortar setting true. The internship at City Hall thrust me into a whirlwind of zoning meetings and stakeholder clashes. My voice, once silenced by doubt, now advocating for green spaces in forgotten neighborhoods. Connor beamed at my first presentation, slipping into the back row with a bouquet of daisies, his presence a silent cheer. You owned that room, he said later, over Victory Ramen in Chinatown, chopsticks clacking like applause. But success bred its own shadows. Colleagues whispered about the architect's boy, reducing our love to footnote, and I wondered if visibility was victory or vulnerability. Connor, too, navigated tempests. The nonprofit's budget crunch threatened his youth program, forcing grant proposals that kept him up till dawn. Coffee his companion. One February evening, I found him slumped at the drafting table, sketches crumpled like discarded dreams. What if I'm not enough? He murmured, echoing my old mantra. I knelt beside him, hand on his knee. You're more than enough. You're the spark. We pivoted together, crowdsourcing funds via a viral X thread. Design your future. Queer teens sharing blueprints of hope. Connor amplifying their voices. The response flooded in. Donors moved by stories mirroring ours. And in the deluge, we saw humanity's better side, connection over division. Yet, the past wasn't done haunting. Evan's shadow resurfaced in spring, not as suitor but saboteur. A scathing review in Architectural Digest. Anonymous but reeking of his style, decrying Connor's sellout to activism. From skyline shaper to sidewalk savior, Hayes trades ambition for altruism. The stung, dredging Connor's insecurities, his late nights turning to brooding silences. Maybe he's right, he confessed one rainy afternoon in the loft, rain streaking windows like tears. I walked away from the big leagues for what? To feel good. I pulled him to the couch, our bodies aligning in familiar comfort. For right, Con. For us, ambition without soul is just noise. To reclaim joy, we planned that Route 66 escape, a pilgrimage from Chicago's neon to Santa Monica's waves, chasing the American myth of reinvention. Packing the Subaru, my Honda traded for reliability. We stuffed it with playlists of Springsteen and mixtapes of our inside jokes. The drive began under Illinois skies, cornfields yielding to motels with flickering signs. In a Tulsa diner, pie a la mode for breakfast, Connor sketched the Grand Canyon on a napkin, his dimple deepening as I added stick figure us teetering on the edge. Adventure partners, he labeled, and in that grease-scented booth, miles from New York's grind, I felt unburdened, love as vast as the plains. Oklahoma's dust devils danced as we crossed into Texas. Amarillo's Cadillac Ranch a surreal pit stop, half-buried cars spray-painted in rebellion. Connor climbed one, hollering my name, and I joined, our laughter echoing off chrome ghosts. That night, in a adobe-walled room outside Albuquerque, we slow-danced to radio static, his cheek against mine. "This is freedom," he whispered, and I believed it, two men carving paths unbound by expectations. New Mexico's red rocks glowed at sunset, and at a Santa Fe art walk, he bought me a silver cuff etched with "Worthy," slipping it on with a kiss that tasted of green chili stew. But the road's romance masked undercurrents. In Arizona's heat, my phone buzzed, a call from Ohio. My father, voice gruff, saw your name in a planning newsletter. Proud, son. Bring that fella home sometime. It was olive branch, tentative, but Connor's face lit when I relayed it. Healing's a highway too, he said, squeezing my hand at petrified forest's ancient logs. Yet, as we neared California's coast, doubt crept. A text from a colleague, Evans badmouthing you both at industry drinks. Watch your back. Paranoia bloomed, and by the time we hit the Mojave, words simmered unspoken. The climax erupted at Joshua Tree, under a sky bruised purple, boulders silent witnesses. We'd hiked to a overlook, packs heavy with water and weariness, when Connor's phone died mid-call, from the nonprofit, funding secured but conditional on his return for a keynote. They need me, he said, excitement laced with guilt. It's now or never, I snapped, the road's isolation amplifying fractures. Need you, or control you? Evan's right, you're chasing validation, and I'm collateral, the accusation hung, crueler than intended, born of fear that our rebuilt world was sandcastles before tide. He recoiled, eyes flashing. Collateral? After the miles we've driven, the life we've sketched? You're the one who runs. Zach, when it gets real, we descended in silence, the Subaru's engine a growl mirroring our rift. At a roadside bar in Barstow, neon buzzing last chance, we nursed beers, apologies thawing the freeze. I'm scared, I admitted, foam clinging to my lip. Of losing you to the same pull that almost took us under. Connor's hand covered mine, calluses grounding. Then let's anchor each other. The keynote? We'll do it together, you intro me. Vulnerability bridged the chasm. And as we drove the final stretch to LA, windows down, wind whipping our hair, forgiveness flowed like the Pacific's promise. Santa Monica Pier welcomed us at dusk. Ferris will light spinning joy. We walked the boardwalk, cotton candy sticky between fingers, his arm around me as waves crashed approval. To detours that deliver, he toasted with a stolen arcade token, and in that salty breeze, betrayal's echoes faded. Back in New York, reinvigorated, we channeled the trip. Connor's keynote wove Route 66 metaphors into youth empowerment, my introduction a heartfelt nod to shared journeys. The applause was thunderous, but his glance my way, love's quiet ovation. Summer's end brought harvest. My internship extended, a full-time offer gleaming. Connor's program thrived, expansions funded by trip-inspired donors. We hosted a barbecue on the loft's terrace, friends mingling with family. My parents awkward but engaged, toasting to new foundations. Lila cornered me by the grill. You glow, little brother. He's the real deal. As dusk fell, Connor pulled me aside, under string lights twinkling like stars. Marry me, not a ring, but a blueprint, our home, sketched with rooms for dreams unborn. Tears blurred the lines, my yes a vow etched eternal. The humanistic denouement unfolded in autumn's gold, leaves carpeting paths like confetti. We didn't rush, wedding plans simmered, a small ceremony in Central Park envisioning. Life's dramas persisted, budget cuts at work, a flare-up with my dad over politics, but we navigated as team, conflicts co-authored into growth. Worth, I learned, isn't a solo edifice. It's communal, resilient in the joins. The crash that started it all? A divine detour, rebuilding not just me, but us two souls, collided into one enduring span. As leaves turned to frost-kissed relics, our engagement settled like a well-laid cornerstone, steady amid the city's ceaseless churn. Planning the wedding became our new blueprint. Not extravagance, but intimacy, a grove in Central Park, under the same cherry trees where Connor had proposed the key. Invites went out on recycled paper, stamped with compass roses, to a circle of chosen family. Lila, Marcus, even my parents, their RSVP a quiet miracle. We'll be there, Mom wrote, adding, love to Connor too. His sister, Rachel, flew in from Boston, her hugs fierce, teasing, finally snagged a keeper. Bro, but romance's glow cast long shadows. External pressures tested our mortar. At City Hall, a senior planner, old guard, mustache like a broom, questioned my activist ties, implying Connor's influence biased my promotions. Keep it professional, Ellis, he grunted, and doubt slithered back. Was our love a liability? Connor, sensing my tension over takeout tie, massaged my shoulders. They're scared of change. But you're the change. Own it. His faith was balm. But the incident lingered, a reminder that visibility invited scrutiny. Connor faced his own gales. The nonprofit's expansion hit snags, zoning variances denied by developers eyeing profit over people. Late nights returned, not with resentment but resolve, his drafting table a war room of appeals. One blizzard evening, snow blanketing the loft like insulation, I found him pacing, phone in hand. They want me to compromise, cut the queer youth wing for broader appeal. His voice cracked, the architect's integrity fracturing. I brewed chamomile, drawing him to the window where flakes danced. Then fight smarter. We fight. Together, we brainstormed, a petition drive, leveraging my city contacts, social media storms with teen testimonials. The victory came hard-won, a variance granted amid public outcry, but in the triumph, we saw partnership's power. 2 minds, 1 mission. Spring's renewal mirrored our growth. Wedding prep wove whimsy into routine, tastings for vegan cupcakes, Connor's nod to sustainability, fittings for linen suits the color of dawn. Rachel hosted a joint shower in her hotel suite. Games silly, pin the ring on the skyline, but heartfelt, friends toasting to love that levels the field. My parents arrived early, Dad's handshake firm for Connor, heard about the youth center. Good work, son. The word son extended, a bridge over chasms. Mom gifting a quilt pieced from my childhood shirts, flannel softened by time, symbols stitched into acceptance. Yet, betrayal's specter stirred once more, insidious as ivy. Evan resurfaced at a industry mixer. Connor attended solo, my shift overlapping. He arrived home shaken, tie loosened, recounting Evan's ambush. Overheard him schmoozing execs, planting seeds that I'm unreliable because of personal distractions. The word dripped disdain, aimed at me. Rage simmered, but Connor waved it off. Ignore the noise. We're solid. But sleep evaded me. Evan's vendetta, a virus infecting insecurities. The next day, I confronted him via text, civil, but pointed, move on. We're building, not burning. His reply, a blocked number. Silence, the sweetest revenge. The wedding dawned misty. Central Park's Bethesda terrace arched like a cathedral of stone and sky. Guests gathered, 50 souls, a tapestry of queer kin and straight allies, under a canopy of white linens fluttering like flags. Lila walked me down the aisle, her arm steady, whispering, "You deserve this joy." Connor waited, eyes shimmering, suit hugging his frame like it was designed for him, which, in a way, it was. He'd sketched the lapels himself. Vows exchanged were personal manifestos. Mine, you crashed into my wreckage and helped me rebuild. Stronger. Seen. His, in your light, I found my true north. Together, we'll design forever. The kiss sealed it. Cheers erupting as petals rained. The terrace a whirl of confetti and cameras. Reception spilled to a nearby pavilion. Tables laden with farm-to-table feasts. A playlist blending Billie Holiday with Hozier. Dad's toast surprised. I was blind once. But seeing my boy happy, that's clarity. Connor's hand under the table grounded me. Tears of release. Dancing barefoot on grass, we swayed to At Last. His breath syncing with mine, romance distilled to rhythm. Honeymoon called us to Provincetown, the irony not lost, reclaiming Evan's haunt as ours. Cape Cod's dunes whispered secrets, bike rides along the bay yielding to clambakes on beaches where waves lapped like applause. In a lighthouse cottage, we journaled dreams, adopting someday, a home in Hudson Valley with space for gardens and guests. Humanity starts small, Connor said, sketching our future hearth. One hearth at a time, return thrust us into reality's forge. My promotion came, lead on a Brooklyn revitalization, crediting Connor's input publicly, turning distraction to asset. His program launched the Ellis Wing, a reconciliation center where families mended over workshops. But climax loomed in autumn, a citywide scandal, corruption in zoning, my old guard boss implicated, dragging innocents. Whispers targeted me, the new guy's too cozy with activists, and evidence surfaced, forged emails painting Connor's firm as bribe conduits. Panic gripped, our names, our nest egg, threatened. The confrontation came at an emergency meeting in my office, fluorescence harsh as interrogations. Connor arrived, face ashen. It's Evan, hired a PI, twisting facts for payback. Betrayal's blade twisted anew, but this time, fury united us. We lawyered up, countering with audits clean as conscience. Media frenzy peaked, headlines screaming queer power couple versus corruption. But allies rallied. Youth from the center testifying, Lila flying in for interviews. In the storm's eye, at home with takeout and tension, Connor held me. They can't touch us, not here. Resolution unfolded in court. Evan's scheme unraveling under cross-exam, his testimony crumbling like cheap drywall. Charges dropped, vindication sweet but sobering. The scandal ousted the corrupt, paving paths for ethical reforms, my project greenlit with community input. Connor's nonprofit boomed, grants flowing for expansions. In the aftermath, we reflected over rooftop wine, skyline aglow. Betrayals build barricades, I said, but love levels them. Humanism prevailed in quiet ways, mentoring a scared teen at the center, echoing our youths, hosting potlucks where my parents bonded with Rachel over pie. Worth, rebuilt through collisions, proved communal, a span bridging divides, enduring as the bridges Connor dreamed. Our story, no fairy tale but flesh and blood epic, whispered, love, wrecked and remade, is the truest architecture. The scandal's dust settled like construction silt, leaving us scarred but sculpted, our marriage a bastion against backlash. Public scrutiny lingered, tabloids dubbing us the crash couple, a moniker half mocking, half mythic, but we leaned into it, launching a podcast, Blueprints of Belonging, interviewing LGBTQ+ trailblazers on resilience. Episodes recorded in the loft's nook, mics capturing not just words but the pauses pregnant with pain, drew listeners hungry for truth. Connor's baritone grounded tales of coming-out cataclysms. My tenor wove threads of hope, our interplay a duet of empathy. Professionally, ascents intertwined. My Brooklyn project broke ground, a mixed-use haven with affordable units and green plazas, ribbon-cutting graced by the mayor's nod. Connor consulted, his sustainable specs ensuring the build breathed. But success summoned sirens, offers from LA firms, tempting with sun and salaries. Over dinner at our favorite trattoria, candlelight flickering on Chianti glasses, we weighed them. It's a fresh canvas, he mused, fork twirling linguine. But roots here run deep, I countered with Hudson Valley visions. Compromise birthing a hybrid, remote collaborations, weekends in the hills scouting land. Family fractures mended incrementally. Memorial Day brought us to Ohio, Subaru laden with Connor's lax, a nod to his heritage, and my urban planning swag for Dad's garage. The farmhouse felt less fortress, more hearth, barbecues where Dad grilled Connor on Red Sox versus Yankees, Mom sharing quilt patterns with me, her apologies stitched soft. We failed you, she said one dusk, swing creaking on the porch. But seeing you whole, it's grace. Connor's quiet, we're all works in progress, sealed the evening, fireflies winking approval. Yet, internal conflicts brewed, subtle as seismic shifts. Connor's wanderlust surfaced in sketches, California coastlines, modernist retreats, hinting at unslaked ambition. Just dreaming, he'd say, but I'd wake to him staring at maps, the loft's confines chafing. My own unease mirrored, internship accolades bred imposter pangs, whispers that my rise rode his coattails. A therapy session unearthed it, our counselor, a wry dyke with a knack for metaphors, likening us to interlocking arches. Strong together, but check the keystones. We recommitted. Weekly foundation dates. No work talk. Just wanderings, ferry rides to Staten Island, where Lady Liberty loomed eternal. Summer's sultry haze amplified tensions. A heat wave trapped us indoors, a sea humming like discontent. Connor landed a guest lecture at Pratt, his charisma captivating students, but post-talk drinks with alums veered nostalgic. Evans Circle, orbiting like vultures. He came home buzzed, not on booze but buzz, recounting old war stories. Jealousy flared, irrational but insistent. War stories? Or glory days without the distraction. My tone sharpened, and he bristled. It's networking, Zach, not nostalgia. Why poison it? The argument escalated. Words weapons. My clinging to crashes. His smothering dreams. Door slams echoed. Me to the fire escape. Him to the studio. Reconciliation dawned with coffee. His peace offering. 2 mugs on the sill as pigeons cooed. I miss the road in you, I admitted. Steam curling. The wild that drew me. He nodded. Vulnerability cracking. And I miss your fire. The spark that challenges me. We drove to the Hudson that weekend. Scouting parcels. Rolling hills dotted with wildflowers. A fixer-upper Victorian whispering potential. Our span, Connor declared. Hammering stakes for a tent. Stars our canopy. Around the campfire, marshmallows charring. We bared blueprints of fear, his abandonment by Evan echoing in offers. Mine, erasure in his shadow. Dawn brought clarity, LA nixed. Hudson pursued. Autumn's palette painted progress. We closed on the house, a creaky charmer with bay windows and a wraparound porch. Renovations our canvas. Weekends became work sites. Me wielding paint rollers, him blueprints, dust and laughter mingling. Rachel visited, her architect eye approving. Solid bones. Like you too. Lila crashed too. Wielding a sledgehammer on a wall, symbolizing breaking barriers. My parents even road-tripped up. Dad's carpentry skills salvaging beams. Mom planting bulbs that promise spring. Family's what we build, she said. Dirt under nails. And in that chorus of hammers and heartbeats, belonging bloomed. Climax crested in November. A nor'easter lashing the city as our podcast hit a milestone. 100 episodes. A live recording at the Youth Center. Guests span spectra. A trans engineer on visibility. A bi-activist on betrayal's bite. But midway, Evan gatecrashed, ticketed by a mole. Mic in hand. Feigning contrition. I was wrong, he intoned. Eyes on Connor. About love. About you. The room tensed. Air electric as the storm outside. Connor froze. Then rose. Wrong? You torched bridges for spite. This, gesturing to us, the crowd, is what endures. I joined. Voice steady. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's freeing. Evan slunk out. Tail between legs. The applause cathartic thunder. The storm broke. Rainbow arching over the center's roof. Post-event. Wrapped in each other's arms amid cleanup. Connor whispered, "You're my climax and calm." We drove to Hudson that night. Nor'easter yielding to stars. The house a beacon. Renovations paused for us. Floorboards creaking under slow dances. Fire crackling confessions. Winter wrapped us in woolen warmth. The house christened with a solstice party. Yule logs and queer carols. Friends toasting to spans that weather. My promotion solidified department head, crediting our partnership publicly. Connor's book deal landed. Designing dignity, weaving architecture with advocacy. Forward by me. Betrayals. Once tempests, now tales in our telling, humanism in the healing. As snow blanketed the hills, we adopted a rescue pup, Max, a scruffy mutt with Connor's dimple in his grin. Walks through woods became rituals, leashes linking us, pauses for sketches or stones skipped on frozen ponds. Worth, rebuilt through tempests, revealed its truth. Not solitary spire, but shared shelter inviting, infinite, ours. New Year's Eve ushered in not with fanfare but frostbitten quiet. The Hudson Valley house aglow with fairy lights strung like constellations. Max snored by the hearth. Our circle intimate. Rachel video calling from Boston. Lila curled on the couch with Coco. My parents toasting with sparkling cider. To another lap around the sun. Kids. Connor pulled me to the porch as midnight neared. Blanket shared against the bite. Fireworks, distant pops over the river. Resolutions? He asked, breath clouding. More us, I replied. Less unraveling. His kiss chimed the hour. Promise sealed in starlight. Spring's thaw greened our world. The house transformed. Kitchen gutted to open-concept haven. Counters quartz veined like marble dreams. Backyard terraced for Connor's herb spirals. My wildflower meadow. Neighbors trickled in. A lesbian couple with goats. A trans farmer sharing tips. Our enclave a microcosm of chosen kin. Work balanced. My commutes to the city yielded to hybrid hearings. Connor's lectures virtual. Freeing Fridays for foraging or fiction. Nights lost in novels. His head on my lap. Pages turned in tandem. But life's arc demands descents. Summer solstice brought diagnosis. Connor's annual checkup unearthed a shadow on his lung. Benign polyp, they said, but biopsy loomed. Waiting rooms became our vigil. Magazines ignored for hand-holding. His jokes brittle shields. If it's nothing, ice cream. If not, world tour on insurance. The scare stripped us bare. Forcing inventories. Letters penned just in case. Videos of laughs logged for posterity. Results came clean, precancerous. Excised cleanly, but the brush fire forged ferocity. We're mortal, he said post-op. Bandaged but beaming in the hospital bed. So love fiercely. Fall's foliage framed reflection. We traveled light. A Berkshire's weekend. Leaf peeping by rail. Debating legacies over diner hash. What mark? Pondered. Train clicking like clockwork. Not monuments, Connor countered. But ripples, kids we mentor. Policies we push. Back home. We amplified. Guest spots on panels for queer elders. Sharing long-haul love amid rising hate crimes. One event. In a Queens community hall. A heckler spat slurs. Freak show. But Connor's retort disarmed. Freak? We're family, join or step aside. The crowd's cheers drowned discord. Humanity's chorus prevailing. Climax whispered in December. Anniversary Eve. A package arrived. Unmarked. Evangeline's final gambit. A dossier of Dr. Doc's alleging Connor's conflicts in the scandal redux. Mailed to my office. Timed for holiday sabotage. Rage initial. Then resolve. We lawyered again. But chose grace. Donating the papers to an LGBTQ+ archive as cautionary artifact. Press release spun it positive. From wreckage to witness. Evan's silence followed. A hollow victory. But ours rang true. Winter solstice circled back. House festooned for hybrid holidays. Menorah candles flickering beside my mom's quilted tree skirt. Family converged. Dad carving turkey with surgical precision. Mom and Rachel bonding over Sufganiat. Lila corralling Max from the pie. Toasts layered, gratitude for survival, for spans unbroken. Connor's gift, a custom compass, engraved, our true north, each other. Mine, plot plans for an addition, a nursery, dreams deferred no more. As snow hushed the hills, we walked the meadow, boots crunching crust, future unfurling like dawn. The crash of your distant echo, catalyst to this continuum. Betrayal's barbs blunted to backstory. emotions etched enduring. Humanistic close. Love as verb. Rebuilding not just worth but worlds. Tender, tenacious, timeless. In Connor's gaze, I saw infinity, two men, collided into constellation, lighting paths for those adrift. And in that light, we stood worthy, woven,